What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Late Breakers pod, coming off an excellent race weekend in Bahrain. Fish, 30 seconds, overview, quick thoughts of the Bahrain GP, and also just how your weekend was.
2022 is it's here. It's here and it's ready to go. We didn't know what to expect. There was a lot of anticipation, potentially the most anticipated Formula One season ever in the 2 years that we've watched it. And I think the race lived up to the hype. There's a lot to get into, and I'm fired up for it. And my weekend was blessed as always.
Couldn't agree more. I think the race certainly augmented what was a great weekend. And that's what's important. You know, we got to wake up early, we got to work hard, watch these races. And you know what? I like when it just makes my weekend better. And that's what it did. So shout out F1 and huge shout out to Ferrari. We'll get into it. But basically, the way we're going to kind of break down this episode, we're going to talk about what we're going to call the big three. That's going to take up most of the time. So that's Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. The championship contenders really kind of driving the race, driving the rhetoric around the sport. Then we'll move into the midfield teams and then kind of the back markers before we talk about next week in Jeddah. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Biggest story is Ferrari. Ferrari has had a tough couple of years in Formula One after cheating, their own fault, yet somehow people seem like they're forgetting about it. And everyone likes Ferrari again. Cheaters. But whatever. They're back. It's good for the sport. And they really kicked off this new era with a 1-2 massive weekend. Did you think Ferrari? Did you think they were going to be this good?
I did not think they were going to be this good. I was personally in the Merc must be sandbagging camp, which we can talk about in a bit. But, you know, Ferrari's looked like the real deal for a few weeks here. They've been consistent. I don't know why I didn't believe them. I should have just believed that what they were putting out on the track, what they're going to show up with. But I think it was just their massive boat-like car that I just couldn't believe could really be that fast. But it is, and they're here to stay.
It literally makes no sense to me how it's so wide and like it just is somehow the same as every other car. Like the drag on that thing just seems like it'd be crazy, but whatever. Anyway, so Ferrari came in, they looked good, but I don't think anyone thought they were going to be this good, and they dominated this weekend. So a 1-2 finish, pole, fastest lap, and they looked like they were on it the whole time. Like, yes, Max was in there for a lot of the race, but like they had a stranglehold on this weekend and they looked sexy doing it. I love this car, the like deep red toting around on track.
The car looks dominant out there.
Who? The car?
The car just looks like it looks big. Like when you see it driving next to other cars, it just looks aggressive. It looks massive. It looks like nobody's going to fucking come into its path because it'll just take you out. And
I will say, though, super surprised at how good Charles Leclerc looked out there. I will say I feel like I'm a bit of a detractor. Like I'm a big like the hype's not there. Like Carlos is better. He looked like really, 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 really good.
Yeah, I agree. And I was actually thinking about this. I wanted to ask you because I think like obviously Charles Leclerc has been a really hype prospect for a while, signed a big contract, was always kind of the guy that was supposed to be the next one up there. He's fought with Verstappen since they were kids and they've always been neck and neck. But do you think that this is a true like 1-2 relationship that Ferrari's going to have with their drivers? Or do you think, and Sainz just had like a bit of an off weekend, or do you think that they're going to be neck and neck as you are a big Carlos Sainz fan in the midfield last year?
Man, it's it's tough. Watching this weekend, like it looked really bad for Carlos. Like Charles was like way ahead the whole weekend. Like Carlos looked kind of off it. I'm hoping it's just like whether it's the track, whether it's just getting to grips with the new car, and there's a couple things he needs to work out. But the problem is this team loves Charles Leclerc. Like it's built around him as is. So if we're 2-3 weeks into the season and like Charles gets a big ass lead on him, this team is going to jump ship on Carlos Sainz in terms of like assisting him. Like team orders are going to come into effect. Like Ferrari has proven this before. If they have someone they think is like a race winner and a world champion, I think they're really going to push it. So if Carlos can do it, and I think he can, the one thing everyone says about Carlos Sainz is he is like bar none, one of the hardest working guys on the grid. So if anyone can figure this out that and sort of close the gap, it's him. But if he doesn't do it soon, then I think there's other factors that are going to come in that are going to really make this a 1-2 dynamic even more than it should be. So definitely scared of that. I think he can overcome it, but he's got to do it fast because if he messes around, it's
I
not.
think it's just that there's two types of drivers in F1. There's the ones that like they can get through the midfield, the guys like Sergio Perez, the guys like Carlos Sainz that outperform when they have average equipment. But then there's like the princesses who are Charles Leclerc, who grew up in Monaco. And once you give them that fast car, they just have the pace. Like last year, Sainz beat Leclerc overall, and everyone was like, oh my God, this is Carlos's coming out party. Is Leclerc overhyped? But I think it's just that Leclerc suits a best car in the field kind of setup, and Sainz is just a bit better in those midfield battles. But
Right. So you're just saying he's a bit of an asshole.
The best team, when it comes to having the best car in the grid, Charles is the pure pace that when he's in the free air, I think he's just going to leave Carlos behind. So I think it's just that there's two types of drivers, and the one from Monaco is suited to have the
I think what you've done there is just say that he's kind of an asshole, and like if his team's not like gonna win, then he doesn't try as hard. And I'm okay with that take. I'm okay with that take. No, honestly, I will say though, like I said, I'm still this Carlos guy. Like I still love Carlos. The thing that really like sticks with me is this whole DRS trap he was setting. I don't know if you've heard about this, but basically, so Verstappen is in second. He's pushing Leclerc super hard for the lead of the race, and he's right up on him. And basically down the pit straight, the Red Bull did look much better. I think the Ferrari looked better as a whole all weekend, but the Red Bull was kind of like a rocket ship down the pit straight. So Max would catch him, and instead of fighting him off, he would intentionally slow down so that he was in perfect position to overtake him with DRS at turn 4. He did it back-to-back laps, and like that to me was like, I didn't know Leclerc had that kind of galaxy brain thinking. And I don't even know like how many drivers on the grid have that thinking, but for him to be one of them is super impressive and something that sticks out to me as like maybe that is the princess of his driving. It
was actually kind of like scary for Verstappen as like someone who believes that Verstappen is like the next coming of Kevin Magnussen. Maybe it's like, why did he just keep going for the same move every time? Did like somebody not get on his radio, or like does he not know that that is what's happening? Like he should have known. I thought after like 2 or 3 times of doing it, like wait and just be in position after turn 4, get the DRS, and then you're ahead for the rest of the lap. So like it kind of scared me as like is Verstappen just that bulldog who like has to go for everything and can't actually think of like the galaxy brain? And
it kind of looked like he was like a dog after a bone. Like he's like, oh, I have a chance, go get it. But then again, the Ferrari was so much stronger around the rest of the track. I don't know if that was the best strategy. I think like his best bet was like get ahead and try to stay ahead. But I definitely thought the same thing. Like, is he kind of just like, I sniff like this path and I just follow it? And Leclerc is out there grinding. But I don't know. I thought it was a great race. And like I said, Carlos Sainz needs to close the gap quick, or he's gonna fall off for Ferrari. But Ferrari is one part of the story. There's another 2 teams sort of in this mix that we see as sort of title contenders, and that's Mercedes and Red Bull. Mercedes will save a little bit later because I think Red Bull is the real talking point here. So Red Bull pushing the limit, really fighting with the Ferraris, and then ends up calamity, double DNFing, all within the last 5 laps of this race. So again, F1 is one of those sports where if the race just kind of goes as planned, it can be kind of boring. But in the last 5 laps, if you have the couple of the leading cars just straight blow up, you have something exciting on your hands. So shout out to Red Bull for that. And all I'm going to say, I'm just going to leave it at this: ball never lies. Okay. Red Bull, they cheated last year. They didn't cheat, but whatever. They got it, the world championship handed to them. They deserve this as karmic relief. But going forward, hopefully their engine can hang on. So this doesn't happen.
I'm actually kind of with you that it's a ball don't lie scenario. Like something had to happen to them after that clear bullshit, but I don't know. I think it might have been like, this might have been a deal or something between Toto and F1. Like Toto was like, all right, don't change the decision, but first race of the season next year, I want to be able to go into the camera and just say, turn off their engines now.
Yeah.
Like
Don't tell any,
like,
don't tell anyone, but I'm putting in
not
a
a
spy. He's putting in
yeah.
a spy to pour less fuel in, so they'll have a fuel engine leak in
And
the last
they
5 laps.
F1 just like turned the other way on that one because they knew that Toto runs the game and he would turn the world championship backwards last year if he didn't get what he wanted.
Of course. Well, for the listeners on Red Bull's issue, I guess. So last 5 laps of the race, obviously the cars are running on very low fuel. They only fuel up once during each race, so you basically go from a full tank to an empty tank. And Red Bull is having some issue at this low level of fuel. It's based around the cars actually running on new fuel this year, so they think that's sort of the genesis of this issue. And as a result, basically both cars just stopped working and they were passed and then had to retire. So brutal weekend for them. Apparently, though, it's going to be a pretty quick fix. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I guess the only thing that I'm, questioning is how do you not figure this shit out? Like six days of testing and no one thought like, oh, maybe when we're on low fuel, we're going to have an issue here.
Yeah, it's scary. And maybe it's just like an adverse like secondary effect of Red Bull fighting so hard for the championship last year. Like, Ferrari had a whole year where they weren't necessarily putting all of their effort into the car and could think about these little small things, but Red Bull just had their plate fully taken last year for the entire year. And maybe it's just these small things that slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
We pretend like we'd be able to build these cars, but at the end of the day, they're little wagons that break at every little change. So
yeah. I mean, yes, it was a bad weekend in terms of the double DNF. That sucks. And for Red Bull specifically, in the past, reliability has always sort of been their issue. They've always been fast. They've always had fast drivers, but often the reliability issue is what stopped them from beating Mercedes in the past. So you don't want to see that kind of rearing its ugly head. But let's say the cars were totally fine and they didn't do that towards the end. It looks like a super exciting championship right now between Red Bull and Ferrari. They were going toe to toe, and Max is like obviously the most proven. I know, like we said, Leclerc is a great driver in his own, but he's definitely the best driver out of that pack. And you could tell he was really wringing the car's neck and driving the shit out of it. The only thing I will say is, I think Charles kind of galaxy brained him at the sort of first turn, which was huge, but also Max was complaining pretty consistently about the team's strategy on his outlap in an attempt to sort of save his tires. They were telling him on his first lap out of the pits he needed to go slower, and both times he thought had he just pushed it full out he would have passed Charles. So maybe that's what it's going to be this year between Red Bull and Ferrari. Like these little strategy calls are going to have a huge impact because the cars looked really even before the Mercedes decided to fuck off or the Red Bull decided to die.
Yes, I agree. But what I think is a bit scary is that, like obviously Ferrari 1-2 up, like now have a 40+ point gap. And so that's just like a bit of a downer, I would say, from like a neutral perspective. Just the fact that there is a big gap in the Constructors' Championship right now.
Yeah.
Like I know it's a long season, but like a double DNF to a 1-2 is like a pretty rare thing. So it would take like 4 or 5 races of like Red Bull consistently beating Ferrari if all cars are finishing to get back to that. And so I'm not raising any huge red flags right now, but I would have liked, it was a 1, 2, 3, 4 for Ferrari and Red Bull there at the beginning or for most of the race. And that would have been like a really nice setup for the Constructors' Championship. So
I definitely, the 44 points seems daunting. And at the end of the year, it definitely is daunting in terms of how many points get scored. But this kind of stuff happens. You know what I mean? Like there's times where even the best teams will go without points. Like I think Azerbaijan last year, obviously Red Bull lost Max, but both of the Burks finished outside the points, I think, or super low, in a race where they both finished. So it can happen. Especially on some of those street courses later in the year, if qualifying goes wrong, engine changes, blah, blah, blah. So I think they can make it up, but definitely it's not a small gap and definitely affects their season. But
Max, the beneficiaries were Mercedes, which brought Mercedes back into the fight. So
now we're talking, baby. So
hopefully now they'll get a bit closer, have some time to make the car better, and then we might see a three race horse.
Yeah. So then we'll move on to Mercedes and kind of allude back to the other two. So Mercedes has obviously been the giant in the sport for the last 8 years now. Constructors championships and domination, truly. It hasn't been close really on a constructor side of things. And the Merc looked tough, like tough out there. We haven't talked a lot about qualifying, but it looked slow. Like it looked like it was speed walking while the other cars were sprinting down the pit straight. So I don't know what's going on there, but they got a lot to figure out. But like you said, this is damage limitation weekend. And one of my favorite sayings is to finish first you have to finish. So suck it, Red Bull. You don't get to the line. You don't get to the checker flag. Mercedes is going to scoop up these points. And they need to, because they got, like you said, they have a lot of work to do. And let's say this didn't happen, they could be out of the running by the end of this month. So this is a huge result for them that they needed bad.
Yeah, there's two things really with Mercedes is that, like, the first is that they went from a design perspective, like pretty much to the other side of Ferrari, where Ferrari went big ground effect, big side pods, wide car. Mercedes is of the cars on the grid, the thinnest, the ones with the smallest side pods. And it's looking like right now that isn't the strategy. And then secondarily, we'll get to the other teams later, but like everyone that has a Mercedes power unit is looking like they're on a fucking tricycle out there.
Yeah.
And so like that's scary if it's just like the engine power isn't there. I don't know how much design stuff they can do to counteract that. Obviously it's a long season and they have an incredible team of engineers, but that's a pretty tough look, like just for what they have in the car right now.
Yeah. There's quite a few things I think at Mercedes to talk about. I know Ferrari is the big talk of the town right now, but the thing with Ferrari is like there's not a lot to talk about. They look sick. They got great drivers and they're probably going to be sick. Red Bull looks fast as hell. They got a little problem. They're probably going to fix it. Mercedes is the one, like in my opinion, that is the most interesting because they obviously have these great drivers. They're in the title fight, but they got a serious problem. So one, everyone's talking about the porpoising for them. Like the porpoising is being a huge issue, and you can kind of see it. Like on the pit straight, they can't catch anyone. But is it the car or is it the engine? Because like you said, the Mercedes powertrain looks like a dog right now. So we have George and Lewis finishing third and fourth. And then the rest of the Mercedes finishers were 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Like everyone who did not DNF was a Mercedes powertrain. So I feel like that's a bigger issue than the chassis. Like they're talking about how they need to fix these things. I think the engine's a problem for one. Two, they're about a second behind per lap. Like before the safety car at the end that basically brought them back into the fight, they were 30 seconds behind Leclerc, and it was, 40 laps into the race. That's so much pace to make up. And the one thing I've been hearing is that all of their sort of simulations and models say that there's pace to unlock here and they can figure it out. Like, okay, then figure it out. Like, I don't understand. Like a full second is so much in Formula One. Like that suggests to me that there is more than one problem here. It could be an engine. It could be the chassis. They have so much to overcome. And I guess the last thing I'm going to say is I think sandbagging is stupid. Like,
but they weren't sandbagging.
No, but they've been sandbagging forever. Like they've been sandbagging for so many years. And then they come out to like thing. And I legit thought like we're sandbagging. I'm like, they're sandbagging. It's going to be sick. And now you don't sandbag and everyone is mad at you and they think you're shittier than you are, for one. The other thing that I find stupid is, like I said, their simulation is saying they're so much faster than they are right now. You had 6 days of testing, and for 3 days of those testing, you did not bring your car. Like you brought a different version of the car that you were going to run. And then you bring another one for 3 days, and now you can't get the car to go as fast as you want it to. And then I heard a quote from Toto that he's saying this was like their last training session. Like they needed more practice. You have an extra weekend. What were you doing?
That's just what like 8 years of like ultimate domination does to you. Like you have to develop that bias, and Toto just thinks that like every move he makes is like he's 10 steps ahead of everybody else. So I think it's just like natural human bias to just like think that you got to do everything because you're just smarter than everybody else.
The hubris is unbelievable for him to be like, we don't even need to train. Or like we don't need both practice sessions with this car. It's going to be so fast. It's like insert Trump speech. It's gonna be so fast. Like he just thought like it wouldn't matter, and it's stupid as all hell. Whereas Ferrari comes in, takes this car out that looks completely different than everyone else's, but no one can copy them because there's 3 weeks until the season start, and they get 6 full days of mileage and laps in. And what do? They come to the first race and look the best and the most consistent. So yeah, I'm mad at Mercedes, pissed off. But anyways, what are your thoughts on George's first race? I mean, fourth.
Fourth is something. A few cars ahead of him didn't finish, but you want to give George some leeway because he's in a new car in a new system. Last year there was 6 drivers who didn't get it right for 10 races in new cars. But I mean, the question is out there. It's like, is this maybe just Nicholas Latifi's fault all along? Is Nicholas Latifi's mediocrity and just like non-ability to drive a car just fooled Mercedes? They've signed George Russell thinking he's the next coming, and he's actually just an average driver on Saturdays. So who knows? It's out there. But I mean, George Russell, he's tall, he's good looking, he's smooth. I'm sure he'll get it figured out at some point, but I don't know. He qualified 9th. Is that what it was? That's a bit scary.
Yeah. Here's my thing with George. First off, on the initial rant, tall, yes. Good looking, I don't know. I feel like he has very unique features. He's got very pointy features.
He's got good bone structure.
Yeah. And is that you? Is that not you? I think that's for you to decide. I think it's a personal choice. That being said, I thought George did a great job. I know he's kind of taken a lot of heat, like especially for qualifying. Obviously, qualifying P9 behind Valtteri Bottas is like so sick for the memes. Like he said post race, and like the commentator said it right when it happened. Like he went too deep into the first corner, and it threw his whole lap off, and he was like a second behind or whatever. Like that happens, and he made a mistake. But what does he do? He gets back in the car on Sunday, has a great start, gets right where he's supposed to be, and like yes, the 2 cars in front of him didn't finish, but the Merc had the 3rd best car, and he was gonna finish 6th. He was doing his job to the fullest. I think he's just like, for a young kid, he's professional, he's calm, he made a mistake, and he overcame it on Sunday, and that's what they want to see. But I don't know. I think he's getting a lot of shit, and I think he should be really happy for
getting a lot of shit because like the expectations for him are unreasonably high for anybody. Yeah. Like you can't just step into that seat and not expect, especially after like all of the talk about Russell and what he's done like in the last few years and in F2. Like the expectations are just too high for him to ever live up to them unless he comes out and wins this race yesterday. So yes, you're right. He did what he needed to do. But I was kind of hoping that, he'd blow the doors off and it would be like, he's the next great driver in F1. And maybe he still is, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's clear that the Merc is not the weaponry he needs. So I think that judgment will take some time, but I think it was a good weekend. Last thing I wanted to note of these top 3 that I'm hearing this kind of take is that like Leclerc is like kind of super aggressive compared to Hamilton. So if the title fight is Verstappen and Leclerc, we might see some serious fireworks. Like you said, like they used to kart together, and I saw a couple clips of them when they were younger. And like apparently post race, like Charles said, like Max is aggressive, so am I. Like I'm down to like fight on track, and I thought that was kind of sick because I think last year there was that like dichotomy in the narrative where it was like Hamilton is this like clean racer that wants to finish, and Max has his elbows out. So if we just have this like kind of massive battle, could be interesting and could create some crazy results. So a lot to look out for the top 3 teams and good stuff. But I feel like we ended on kind of a down note. So let's go into the midfield and really raise our spirits with the absolute storybook narrative that is the Haas F1 team. I mean, what else can you say other than like just it made me smile. It made me smile. I'm here for Haas. Shout out Haas. K-Mag is back.
Haas has taken so much shit over the last like 3 years, and I think they just played it slow. They took their time. They took some Russian money, and now they're back. And I think like regardless of what would have happened this weekend, whether it was like a P5 or like whether they were just competitive like in that midfield group, it would have been just like nice to see them back. But that was just like Kevin Magnussen finishing 5th, just like an awesome story. He's been out of F1. Now he's back. Yeah, it was just awesome to see. I was fired up.
It was honestly nuts. Like everyone was like, Haas is good. Like it's great to like see them back. You know, they have a respectable car.
Yeah.
No chance anyone thought they'd be the fourth fastest car on the grid and third in the constructors after the first race. Like completely ridiculous. I know I saw a quote during practice or testing, and it was like Lando saying, you know, we need to revere Haas as a competitor. And everyone was like, oh, shut up, Lando. Like, stop fucking sandbagging. It's annoying. Well, here we are. And the Haas is an absolute rocket ship. Um, but it honestly is so crazy. I guess the only thing to note is K Mag obviously finishing fifth, pretty big delta off Mick. I know Mick did have an incident. He did spin around, which was like legit the coolest 360 I've ever seen. He got poked by Ocon, nailed it, finessed it forward, which was sick. I'll give him that. But he wasn't really close to Magnussen. Like I didn't think he was really pressing to get near Magnussen at any point. So just something to watch for Mick. It's the first race, no big deal. Like even though Mick was in the car last year, Magnussen still has 10 times the amount of experience. So we'll give Mick a kick, but
you never know. Of course, it's only one race, but like losing Mazepin could be the worst thing to happen to Mick.
That's what I'm thinking, man.
Like, because, you know, if Mazepin's in that car, he probably spins it, you know, like he's out of the race. Mick finishes P11 or like even P10 if Magnussen wasn't ahead of him, grabs a point, and then like in 2025, like Schumacher's in a Ferrari, like he gets a contract. Now Magnussen comes back and like this could be a career ender. Could it be that like Vladimir Putin just torpedoed Mick Schumacher's career?
There's no saying how big of an impact this could have on Mick's career. And like you said, I think he's the biggest loser from losing Mazepin, because not only from a race results perspective, just from like a personality perspective, like that if you watch Drive to Survive, like they absolutely roast Mazepin, and then mirroring him beside Mick, who is like, here's the thing with Mick too, and I'm a big Mick guy now just from Drive to Survive, because he obviously has this incredible story as his father being this F1 legend who now, you know, based on an unfortunate accident is no longer, I don't know the right words to say here. He's not dead, but he's not exactly a part of Mick's life anymore. You know, Mick can't really celebrate these moments with him. I'm sure that's tough on him, but he seems like the most humble guy. Like he learned everything right from his father's success. And then you have this guy beside him who is just an asshole, like 99% of the time. So everyone loves Mick. But now you got K-Mag coming back, who like is apparently this like the messiah of happiness at Haas, and everyone loves him. So Mick's taking it on both fronts, which is tough. One thing I want to get into on Haas, they have legitimately though fallen ass backwards into like being everyone's favorite team. Like when you actually think about it, Gene Haas is like has done nothing right except hire Gunter Steiner, who is just like everyone like naturally loves him. But like going into this year, like even last year, Haas is at the back of the grid and they're so bad and they're just constantly driving around the back of the grid. But did you hate Haas? No, because you kind of had that eerie feeling that Mazepin was just like puppeting the whole organization. Yeah. So you kind of had this like idea of them being a cancer. And then this year, they sort of excised the cancer, and now they are back to being just everyone's favorite. Go Haas. This is amazing. When like fully, it was just Gene Haas being unwilling to support the team financially that led them into that issue in the first place. So I just find it hilarious that like everyone's got such short memories and just being like, we love this team. It's great. Like they put themselves in this position where they kind of needed Mazepin, but hell, I'm glad they're gone. I'm glad they're gone, and I'm glad Haas is back.
It's like the perfect instance of like everyone loves to like meme somebody and like shit on somebody, but it only goes for so long, and then everyone kind of just likes the comeback story. Like I remember like at least I don't know if it was the first episode, but the first episode like I remember of Drive to Survive in season 1 was like pretty much shitting on Haas and like memeing Gunther Steiner for hating his drivers and all that. Yeah. And so like that just like set the tone for the next like 2 years of most people like kind of shitting on Haas, but they didn't do anything differently other than they've now gotten rid of their worst driver and somehow they have a solid car. And yeah, now they're a comeback story, and who doesn't love a comeback story?
Yeah, they are David fighting with the Goliaths once again, which is awesome. And I do want to say, like, I know we talked about Mick a little bit. Got to give K Mag his flowers to come basically off the street a couple weeks before the season, and just perform like that, like look like you never missed a beat is crazy. And also, just again, like just getting into this likability thing. Like, I know this isn't a metrics, it doesn't matter on track, but like he just seems so happy to be there, and it's so awesome. Like, a lot of this comes down to like how much money you have and who you know and all that. And like, yeah, K Mag's like, oh, money, all that, blah, blah, blah. But he's just so goddamn happy to be there. He's so thankful that they gave him a call, and he's putting it out on track. So go Haas. Really the top of the midfield right now, which I don't think anyone was expecting. Let's go the exact opposite, though. Let's go to, we're calling them a midfield team, but they actually stunk like shit this week. But we kind of have the feeling that they'll be in the midfield, and that's McLaren. Let's talk about the struggles with the orange car whipping around the track. Like, crazy surprising. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty brutal, because McLaren's been on like this uptrend for the past like 3 or 4 years. It seems like they've been building like the back end stuff that's like been setting them up for success. And you kind of expected this to be the opportunity where like they'd have these change in regs and they'd be, all their hard work would pay off, where they'd have this opportunity for a new car and really do well. They might just be, they're one of the teams that are taking a Mercedes powertrain, so that might just be hurting them. But no, just brutal. They finished like P14 and P15, and just looked like really, really terrible, like nowhere around this weekend. And all I can think about is like that first practice session where Lando was first and like said like, now everyone's just going to have these crazy expectations. We're not that fast. And he was right there, fucking walking out there.
But like, it's crazy how bad it is. Like, the house is on fire with all the cars in it. Like, this is bad. I know it's one race, but like, this is so much worse than anyone could have expected. Neither of them get out of Q2. Daniel goes out in Q1. Yikes. And like you said in the race, like total non-entities. At one point, they were showing some of the deltas between the top racers, and Daniel and Lando's names had both fallen off the timesheet on the screen. It was as if they were not there, like so far back. And then to make it even worse, like obviously they have a slow car, they have an issue. They started on mediums, everyone else started on softs, and they just immediately was the wrong strategy. So they didn't even get that right. Really just like a walking nightmare for them. And again, we talked about this in sort of last week's show. Lando's under contract there now for like 6 years.
He is locked in.
Daniel's like, as much as everyone loves DR, like his career is at risk. Like maybe a back marker picks him up in the future, but like if he's really bad again, this could seriously be the end of him in the sport, because like there's an issue. So both of the drivers have got to be like, shit, this is bad.
Like you would like, I don't know which is worse, but like you might even be in a worse situation if you're Lando. Like he's obviously got a really like great career ahead of him, but he is like locked into this team, and we don't want to like freak out. It's only one race. It's a long season. If Mercedes puts some improvements in, and McLaren does the same, then they could be okay. But yeah, Daniel Ricciardo's career has just like in like the opposite of like a storybook of back marker midfield winning races. He just started with the winning races part, and now he's going backwards, and hopefully he stays in F1 because everyone loves him.
It does suck though too, because I think McLaren has built up like a ton of brand equity, let's call it, like in the F1 community. Like I think everyone really likes McLaren. They like them as sort of this like team that could battle with Ferrari over the coming years, and in the last couple of years actually, do just as well as them. And everyone loves sort of Zach Brown, even though he's terrible at hockey from Drive to Survive, absolute ass out there. But I just like it sucks to see, you don't want them toting around at the back of the grid, especially they have two really popular drivers and all of that. So hopefully they can figure it out. But yeah, what started as like a small brake problem has clearly manifested itself into something a lot more. Obviously it was exacerbated by Daniel not being able to practice because of COVID and everything, but hopefully they can figure it out in Jeddah, because that's not looking great. Now moving up, into the other midfield teams, we'll go through the three A's: Alfa Romeo, Alfa Tauri, Alpine. Um, some good things to know from this group, some mediocre things to know from this group. But we'll start with Alfa Romeo, who is now fifth in the championship after a surprising first race. Specifically, our boy VB, qualifying sixth, class qualifying.
That's a classy performance from VB. Like everyone knows he's quick, and last year if he could qualified sixth, he'd be getting shit on, and now he's kind of the hero, and I kind of love that for VB. Like I just want him to be happy. He took a lot of shit from Lewis for a few years, got some world championships, and now like he's just going to show off his pure speed on Saturdays and just battle out there on Sundays, and I'm here for it.
I like loved the feeling of this race and this whole weekend in general, of like the idea that just truly anything can happen. So when VB like out qualifies George, everyone is like, oh, like, you know what? Alfa Romeo could be better than Mercedes. The Ferrari engine looks so much better. Like it was truly just like pandemonium. What could happen? Which I think was awesome. And I hope that keeps going for a little bit because that's exciting. I don't want the teams to kind of fall into an exact order. Like you want to see this, which is great. But yeah, crazy race from VB. I got a terrible start. I think he went from 6th to 14th back to 6th. So what a wild ride. But everyone's happy for the guy. And like you said, like I think this is a big case of like the power of positivity because sixth place last year, everyone would have been like terrible race. Like Toto's on the mic being like, you can go faster. And he's like, I can't. But now it's just like pure elation, and that's awesome. And like I think everyone's really happy about it. And there's a lot of really good stories this week, which is good. The other thing too is his teammate, Zhou Guanyu. Congrats, first race, and he scores points. I don't know what the stat was, but I heard on the broadcast, and not very many racers do that. On the first race, a lot of people start further back and struggle. And yeah, there was a couple DNFs in front of him, but we're not going to rain on the guy's parade. You know what? I gave him a hard time last week. I was beefing him for being a pay driver. Maybe he's just all right. Maybe he's pretty good.
And he's going up against VB, which is a tough mental battle. So for him to go out there and just, throw it on track, that's pretty good. But the thing is that Yuki did the same thing in Bahrain last year. First race, went out, grabbed some points, and then he kind of Yuki'd on the rest of the season. So
yeah. The thing I'll say for Joe is like, and what I've been hearing around him is like he's always been good, just never great. So if you have to have one seat for a pay driver, that might be what you want. Someone that just throws in solid results. But he looked pretty racy out there. They actually got like God forbid the Alfa Romeo hits the TV more than twice in a fucking race. Sky Sports threw him a bone though, and like I saw him a couple times. Sometimes it was him getting past, but he was racing out there and he was entertaining. So I will lay off and be nicer to him in the future. So shout out Zhou Guanyu. All right, moving on. We'll go to Alpha Tauri. You mentioned Yuki, and speaking of Yuki, pretty solid result. Only car to finish, so he's ahead of the gas man.
He was the one who was touched by God that didn't have that Ferrari the Red Bull just blow up on him. But yeah, that was a great move by Yuki. I think he's learned the tactic of qualifying poorly so you can do well in the race, which is a Sergio Perez classic.
A very smart move for a low midfield team.
Exactly. That's the smartest tactical move you can make. It's like a backup quarterback in the NFL with one good game, You just got to set yourself up to be in a position to show off well, and that's exactly what Yuki did. So I like the look of him.
Yeah, I mean, like the reality is what Yuki needs to do this year is just be more consistent. The Red Bull has a good engine; it looks pretty fast, and obviously the Alpha Tauri is kind of the adjacent of that. So I don't see why of this midfield group Alpha Tauri wouldn't be potentially at the top, battling with Haas. Probably it looks like. And they need consistent results from Yuki. So hopefully that's what he can deliver, and hopefully this is the start he needs. That being said, tough day for the gas man. You know me, I am a gas man. And he looked good though prior to engine explosion.
I mean, engine explosion can really hurt a race sometimes. So that was unlucky for him, but he's always consistent. It seems. I think he's kind of in the position where he's maybe hopefully fighting for, that Red Bull seat down the line. And so it's a big season for Gasly too. But no, like he's a consistent performer and everyone pretty much rates him highly at this point, which hopefully will not only like propel him forward and give the team some confidence, but also allow Yuki to just like kind of free ball and not be too stressed out because he knows that, he's fighting against somebody that he might not be expected to beat.
Yeah.
And so I think AlphaTauri set up well. Yeah, as you said, the car should be solid if the reliability is there. And yeah, if Yuki has some pace and has a bit more consistency, I'm excited to see what they can do.
And just a note on the reliability side of things, apparently the gas man's engine imploding and lighting on fire is not related to what happened to them later in the race. That being said, reliability is reliability. Like if you have one engine blow up and two stop working out of the four you have running, not great. So
I think it might be better to have the same issue happen to all three than two.
That's what I'm thinking. This is now next race, Max is going to be out front and have an explosion engine. Looks like he's the Batmobile out there. But one note I want to make, and this is totally not related to the race or anything. I was watching on TSN, and honest to God, the commercials are so annoying because the race basically, and this is bad podcasting. I apologize to everyone listening right now. But basically, the race, you can't hear it, but you can see it. And at one point, it goes to commercial, so I can't hear anything. And Pierre Gasly's car lights on fire. Like, key moment here that's going on. Like, yellow flag, massive implications for the race, and I'm getting nothing. Just nothing. I'm getting a Questrade commercial probably, for God's sakes. Like, just don't play commercials during the race. It's not that hard. It's an hour.
Yeah, those commercials seem to come on at like the worst times. It's happened
Literally.
before. I don't remember when, but like there's been a couple times that it's been like very pivotal moments, and you come back and like somebody's spun and like there's a safety car out. You're like, well, I have no idea what just happened.
You gotta have a guy that knows Formula One. And hey, this is me petitioning for the job right now. You gotta have a guy that says to them, okay, cars are aligned, we're looking good. Let's throw in a commercial here. Let's let them settle in. Then crash happens immediately. Get on the mic, be like, shut the commercial down, get back to the feed. I'm done with this, CSN. Done with it. All right. Last team in the midfield mix to talk about is Alpine. I have very limited notes on Alpine, like a double points finish, but pretty anonymous out there. I don't know.
The only thing about Alpine is that they're riding with their own engine, and I kind of respect that. Like they're not tied to anybody else. Even if their engine isn't the best, I respect that they're just kind of like putting in a solid performance, riding with their own equipment. And, they got some solid drivers. I think it's a good indicator that they'll be fighting at the top of the midfield, hopefully this year.
Yeah, I definitely think the engine gives them an advantage because Mercedes is bad this year, I guess, from a powertrain perspective. So they'll probably be fighting the Ferrari and the Red Bull engine, but it does give them a distinct opportunity as well from a development standpoint. If there's issues with it, they can address it for their cars specifically because they're the works team. So that's an advantage. And still, wily veteran out there, Fernando Alonso. So that's always an advantage. One note on the Alpine, like I cannot wait for that pink livery to just fuck off. It is just an eyesore.
I don't like the pink.
No,
the pink is better than the blue-pink combo.
The pink looks slow though. The pink, I agree. But the electric blue from last year looked fast. This pink, it looks like a hubba bubba, friggin' floating around on the track. I hate it. It's gotta go.
It is gone, I think, in a couple races, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone, but they're still got the pink on the side. The thing I don't get, and I want to talk to BWT about this, their logo is blue, white, and then pink. Just use the blue. Just invert the colors.
They seem to like the pink. They're riding.
It looks terrible. Okay. Anyway, so that's the mid pack there. Any high level notes? I mean, it looks like Haas is kind of running the show, but I think it's going to be, honestly, Formula One benefits a lot when the midfield is tight and when the midfield is actually providing some action, especially if Ferrari looks as good as they are and there's not going to be too many interesting things out front.
Yeah, I think we might see some kind of like order reversion back to the normal stuff. Like I think Haas's jump will definitely be a jump. I would like for them to stay at the top of the midfield. I think it'd be interesting, but I think we we might see some order reversion as like the stronger teams in general just get back to it. But yeah, as you said, I was reading a Twitter thread about what Drive to Survive has done for Formula One, and one of the big things was that it really like developed the storylines of these midfield teams. Like it went into their houses, specifically like when Mercedes and Ferrari weren't so bought into Drive to Survive at the beginning. And so, yeah, like I think they've set themselves up well for when there's a good midfield battle. People are pretty invested in it, and that's just like good for the sport overall. So I'm a fan of the change, and hopefully we'll see some big like diversity in who finishes at the top of that group throughout.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is if they're all if the order is constantly switching and, these guys can finish 5th to 15th on a given day and they're always going in between, that's interesting to me. So hopefully that stays well and good. All right, we'll go to the bottom. Only 2 teams in the bottom here, but in the future we'll try to create a 3-team bottom once the midfield kind of shakes itself out a little bit more. This one's gonna hurt Lawrence Stroll to hear, but like Aston looks wide and slow on the track.
They look like the Ferrari is the fast boat. Aston Martin is looking like a slow boat.
Aston Martin is the pontoon boat of F1 vehicles right now. It is absolutely floating its way around the track.
As you do on pontoon boat, they have a couple of drinks. It's kind of a fun team. They got a nice little they're just chilling back there, and maybe results aren't everything.
Yeah, I mean, on a serious note from Aston, though, I feel like when they got bought by Lawrence Stroll and they were going from Racing Point to Aston, and Racing Point had some success, everyone was really excited, and they've kind of gone in the opposite direction since then, and things have just kind of gotten worse and worse, which is unfortunate because I like their car and I wish it was fast, but really tough to see on Saturday in qualifying. Lance Stroll qualifies behind Nico Hülkenberg, who literally hasn't raced in a year and got called. Like, I think he didn't even sleep the night before he raced. And when someone asked him how he was, like, was he excited? He's like, I'm going to be sore. And he still beat him.
Yeah, you just can't get beat by, like, the reserve driver. That's such a tough look. So, yeah, it wasn't a great day for the nepotism boys out there, but
Oof.
I mean, everyone loves Hülkenberg, so it's exciting when he gets in there. He's a good-looking guy. He just flies out. But, yeah, that's so tough for Lance.
Hulk looked good in that racing green. I'll tell you that. That's a nice look on him. Much better than the pink for sure. But I would say, like, the thing, too, with, like, Lance Stroll is, yeah, he qualified behind Nico Hülkenberg. That's awful. But then he finishes, I think it was 12th, and then Nico came in last. But I have no faith in that result. I have no faith that like he was obviously given preferred strategy, like, because that's the team and that's how they do it. Like, I have no faith in at all whatsoever that like they didn't just throw Nico to the dogs and like literally give him like burnt tires and be like, oh, sorry, Nico, like can't possibly have you finish ahead of Lance. It would just be a nightmare. So I can't trust that result. And Lance, second favorite Canadian on the grid, as always. Speaking of our favorite Canadian, who we did blast a little bit earlier, Nicholas Latifi and Williams, also not looking great.
Yeah, we had a narrative last season that Nicholas Latifi was Mr. Sunday, that he came out and really put out the race results, and I think we might just have to roll that one back at some point because he's not looking the strongest out there with a new teammate as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff to talk on the Williams side of things, but I guess on the racers side of things at Williams, really good weekend from Alex Albon in terms of like, I was hearing people say, you know what, like this is what George would do, right? Like it looks like a slow car. It looks like a Q3 car. I think he qualified 12th. So that's what George was trying to do last year, right? Like kind of out qualify the car. So that's good news from Albon. And I mean, it sucks for Latifi. I know we talked about this last week that like Latifi could be the career guillotine down there at Williams. Like anyone that comes in, if they lose to him, see ya. But I don't think that's going to happen. Albon looked to have it handled. So that's good for him. What I will say, though, is I think there was a lot of optimism for Williams last year. Like you said, kind of like McLaren, where they seem to be getting their shit in order because obviously the Williams family was bought out, but they kind of kept the name and everything. But getting Doralton in the building and basically hiring completely new people and whatnot, and building a totally different team infrastructure. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, step one, that's done. Now we have these new regs. Let's explode. And it doesn't. They look bad. The car looks nice. I like the blue, but it's a slow one.
Yeah. I think as you were saying, like people may have expected Williams to kind of make the Haas jump this year.
Yeah.
And they'd be the ones who would maybe emerge out of this group, but that's Mercedes powertrain, so they're just fucked.
That's the thing too. Like all of these Mercedes powertrain customers must be just cheddared right up, because like last year they all were so much better than everyone and they were so smart, but maybe they were thinking a little too short term. They should have been thinking about the new regs, but I don't know. It's gonna be crazy, and it's to be honest, I think it's gonna be tough for those two to get out of the sort of bottom positions. I think if anything, someone's gonna be joining them in the bottom rather than them kind of pushing the end of the midfield. I guess the one thing to say is that Seb Vettel was obviously out with COVID-19 for this race, so he should be back, and obviously he's pretty handy behind the wheel of a vehicle, so maybe he can help Aston out of the doldrums, but a very worrying start to the season. All right, that's a rundown of the race and the weekend. Obviously, like we said, Ferrari kind of stole the show, but very interesting narratives, I think, for really every team on the grid, except for Alpine. That was a snooze, tough to get through, but we're excited about the colors changing. So I guess we can just talk about a couple other things. I know this was a big piece going into the year, the new cars, so the idea behind these cars, they're better at following, they're better at racing. We want to see more passing. We want to see more competitive racing. How do you think the new vehicular units delivered?
I think they like probably wet everybody's beaks a bit, like they got everybody excited enough that like I think there's optimism that they are a lot better. Like when I first heard that these regulations were being announced, like I thought we were going to see like overtakes every lap and like guys looking like they're in go-karts out there whipping the cars around, which like obviously just isn't really feasible with this size of car and things like that. So maybe that was just my expectations too high. But like what we saw with like Charles and Max at the front, where they were definitely following closely, like there was some good racecraft there. I think like hopefully we can see more and more of that, especially on the tracks that are more conducive to passing. So I think the answer is that yes, they're better. And like there's still a lot of room to improve. But I don't know. The cars do look a bit like they look big. I feel like they look like big and they don't look super agile, which I think a couple of the drivers were saying. Like Seb was saying that like the cars are like definitely looser than they were last year, but like that doesn't really matter if you can follow more closely. So yeah, like I think it remains to be seen, but there was like definitely enough to get people a little fired up.
Yeah. I think I entirely agree that this, in my opinion, is like an expectation management issue, but I think it might also be, and this is us, pointing out our lack of experience, is like because we haven't been fans for that long and we don't have experience with like previous eras. I feel like when they were like more overtaking, they meant, like one or two more race, but we were like, pandemonium is going to be psychotic out there. Like these cars are just going to be flying around. So I think that was one thing, but I agree. I do think that they might have like oversold it, but I definitely think like racing improved. I definitely think racing improved, especially when you like hear the teams or the racers specifically talk about like their ability to follow and how annoying that was last year. And I think you saw it on multiple occasions. Like towards the end of the race when Lewis was pushing Sergio, like he was on his ass for like 4 laps, just like right behind him, like glued to the tail, trying to find a spot. And that would not have happened last year. And then like the Leclerc and Verstappen battle, like I feel like the way that plays out last year is basically Max gets close enough to take one shot at it, passes him, Charles passes him right away, and then Max has to drop back because the car's too hot and he doesn't get to go again. So we saw it once, we got to see it all over again. So when you think about it, it's 100% growth of fun shit that's happening, and the Crofty and Brundle were going nuts for the entire segment.
That's one of the best things about F1 is like just how passionate the guys are about it. Like they've been around for so long that they know when like something's an exciting rare thing, and so
Yeah.
like they get so bad.
They take so much crap, like the two of them, for like getting people's names wrong and like this, that, and the other thing. You know what? Listen, they got to talk for legit 90 minutes straight. Like there is no breaks for them. They are going one start to finish. So no wonder they make a million mistakes. When something crazy is happening, they are A1 fired up, and it's so entertaining. Like it makes everything better. So I just wish everyone would leave them alone.
Yeah, but
they're doing the best they can.
I think there's two good things about the cars. One is like, yeah, I don't know if just last year I wasn't watching because like I never really realized or I knew the following thing was an issue, but like now I'm watching much more closely for it. So like there was like 5 or 6 times in the race where I'm like, it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where you're like, that guy's following me. Like you could see him, he's right behind him. Like I'm so fired up. So like that was good. And then the other thing is that just because like this is new regulations, I think there's a lot of more appetite for change because like there just will be bigger developmental upgrades between the teams, and some teams will get it more right than others. So I think there is like more room for the order to shift around, at least from what we saw today or on Sunday. And so that's exciting too, just like because there's turmoil in the teams, like hopefully that will lead to some chaos in the orders.
I also find like I really like the look of the cars. Like I feel like when F1 like showed us the dummy car last year, everyone was like, this looks so ugly. I really like the new like back wing design, like how it's kind of curvy. I like the big sort of shovels on the front. Like I know I thought they were going to look really stupid, but I actually kind of like them on track. Speaking of seeing things on track though, the Mercedes livery makes me want to vomit everywhere. Like being a Mercedes fan, I'm so mad about the whole testing and being slow, but I can't look at the thing anymore. It's horrendous. It's awful.
You also don't like the bright Lewis numbers, and I actually think
they're even worse. Like it's like it was legit. Like the car is already too busy and disgusting, and then they're like neon, just splash it on there. And then George's not being the same as him makes me even more mad. And then George's is black writing with like navy blue neon underneath. Like it you can't even see it. It looks like someone spray painted around. It looks ugly as hell. I hate it. And it looks slow.
Lewis has got the yellow helmet though, and the yellow helmet, you see his head bobbing around, and then you see his numbers, and you're like, okay, that's Lewis. There it is.
The thing, like, I just think it looks. I do like how the yellow pokes out. I'll give you that. That's nice. But I just think the car is also kind of slow right now. In the absolute worst case scenario, is that your car also looks slow while it is moving slow. So it's a real double whammy on that front. But like I said, I guess it's better than the pink. So we'll give them that. All right. Well, I guess that's it for kind of Bahrain. An excellent kickoff to the season. I don't know about you, but like I know we had lofty expectations, and I actually thought that they really met them. I thought it was a great race. Ode to Red Bull, though, I will say, without the kind of double DNF in the drama late, I feel like the race would not have been as good. But you know me, I'm always down to enjoy Red Bull's pain and failures.
Yeah, nothing like there was about a 20 lap period there where there wasn't a ton going on, but then there was people were going for the 3-stop, and that always throws a nice little late kick into it. So Red Bull, they took it on their shoulders. They brought the race back in the last 5 laps, and sometimes you got to take one for the team.
Do you have any offhand ideas of how to make the like middle portion of the race better? Because I agree, like the first lap's crazy. Then there's a little bit of like pandemonium around the first pit window. But then normally once like the teams go from softs to either mediums or hards, and if it's a 2-stop race or 1-stop strategy, like it's pretty snoozy there in the middle before the end. You got any offhand thoughts of what should be added in the middle?
Like bar the safety concerns, what I think would be sick is like every team just has the ability to like chuck one of their drivers into the wall. So there's like a red flag in the middle of the race. And so we just get like lap 1 again. You know what I mean? Because that's what I get most excited for is like when the cars are all at standing start again. Like there's been a bunch of shit that's happened in the race. You kind of have an idea of who's fast, but then like the pandemonium is just going to happen again, like lap 1. So I think like every team should be able to just one time just like chuck a car into the wall.
Just to avoid the potential death that represents, what if every team just had like 2 or 3 yellow and red cards per year. And they're like, we need it right now. Yellow card the race so you could bunch everyone up, or you could red card the race.
That would be sick, but only if the principals like had to go out where like the mechanics lean out and like they had to lean out over the fence and like play their card.
Yeah.
And then you see Toto going out there like shaking his little red card. That would be awesome.
And then you can also, if the card is being played, you can immediately play a challenge where you have to fight the other principal in hand-to-hand combat. And if you win, you'll stop them producing the red or yellow flag.
I might not even watch the race if that was happening.
I think it has legs. We'll talk to the FIA. All right. Well, next week we look forward to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. New street track out in Jeddah. Any track thoughts? I mean, last year this was a psychotic race.
I'm always just excited for street races. I don't know what it is, but like one of the coolest things about Formula One when I like first got introduced to it was that like they're driving these cars like on the streets of places. And so like I always get extra excited for street races. Other than that, I hope that the track produces like some strengths for cars that it didn't produce that Bahrain didn't, so that like we can see who's strong in different types of environments. But yeah, I'm just excited to have a street race.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple things on Jeddah. One, I am concerned for the safety of the drivers at this track and how well this is going to go. Last year, I think there were 2 red flags, and basically every driver said, like, we are going way too fast for this track. Like, there is no runoff. And that's street circuits, right? Like, that's kind of how they're built. You know, the walls are right there, but it's kind of where F1, I feel like, on Jeddah is trying to have their cake and eat it too, where like street races, yes, the walls are there, but they're normally much slower. And if you are going to have like a pit, like a flat straight, it's going to have lots of runoff, or it's going to be very safe. Where Jeddah is like almost full speed all the time, and there's no room to make a mistake. So my only concern with that, though, is this is so brand new, right? Where like Monaco, everyone knows Monaco. Everyone has years of data on Monaco. But now you're compiling a new track with new cars. And I just hope it isn't like, listen, I love a red flag as much as the next guy in terms of the race excitement, but like, I don't want to see it like every 5 laps. Like, I don't want it to be consistently being interrupted. I want to make sure the race kind of goes on. So that's one concern. 2, if I'm driving a Merc powertrain, I am worried as hell for this track. Like this thing is pedal to the metal, like full speed for a lot of it, a lot of straights, and they looked bad on the straights. So I could see Mercedes coming like even behind a Haas. Like legit, I think they might really struggle this week if they don't figure something out in like the 2 days they have.
Yeah, the good thing is that like it will suit Red Bull, because Red Bull has that like insane straight line speed here. So hopefully we see, you know, like maybe something where Red Bull's a bit stronger than Ferrari this weekend, and we see how that shakes out.
Yeah, cool. It's going to be crazy. And I think Jeddah is also a night race, and I like the races under the lights. So that's a benefit also. All right. Let's close it out. Podium predictions. Who do you have for Jeddah?
I'm going to go back to the Weld. I'm going to go Max. You just got to take it, right? He's angry. Max is always great when he's angry. So I'm going to take Max to win. I'm going to take Charles second. I know that's a boring pick. And then I want to take like a fun, like Ferrari powered guy. And
let's reserve that. Let's say like, let's do a 4th place, but really what we mean is like, our bold prediction guy that's going to do well, like might finish 4th. Like you don't have to marry him to 3rd.
Give me your 1, 2, and then I'll go 3.
Yeah, my 1 is going to be Max. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance. And like you said, I think the Red Bull is going to be Red Bull is going to be a problem on this track because like they were flying down the straights in Bahrain. So I think Red Bull will be a concern. So I'm going to go Max 1, and I'll go Sergio 2. I think Red Bull is going to come back firing.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to put Sergio 3. But are you going to ride with your boy Carlos to beat Charles?
100%, man. 100%. 100%.
This is potentially could be more of a racecraft circuit. So if they don't have the fastest car, then Princess Charles might not be in his element out there in free air.
Listen, Charles is going to be out partying all week. He is not focused. Carlos is nose to the grindstone.
Cinderella story. I actually think this sets up so well for VB.
VB.
He's quick over one lap. He's got a strong engine. I could think he could take another step, just be back up there.
Okay, I'm going to go Carlos third because I said last week that I was going to put Carlos third for every race, and I feel like if I move off that in the first race, then I can never be trusted again. So have to do that. But I do think, they're in the second best car, and I think he's just as good as Charles. So I can see that happening. The other thing, too, is I think there could be some shenanigans in this race. So I think while we have pretty much the same podium, I really think this has kind of the feel of a race where we could have a Pierre Gasly Monza type of result, because if there's fighting up front and cars are following closer on this track where there was so much damage last year, I think we could see a crazy race result. So don't be surprised if a VB actually ends up winning the race. Wouldn't be the craziest thing. My fourth place finish, though, in terms of the All-Star surprise award, I'm going to go with Kevin Magnussen. I think Haas is back, baby. And I think K-Mag is just I think they need one more to make everyone believe it. Because the worst thing would be for them to finish 15th and 16th this weekend. So I think Kevin is just riding high. He doesn't think this car can come lower than 5th, and he's going to do even better.
I like it. I do like that a lot. The Haas needs to do something it just doesn't look good. I know they got rid of the Eurocali, which is obviously the right move, but I just feel they could be a fun American team.
That's what I was thinking, man.
And their car just looks like a boring livery that doesn't look fast, and I don't like it.
The white, I hate. It's always too white.
Yeah.
Before, when they were doing gray, my feelings on gunmetal gray, nothing worse. I just don't. I totally agree. I don't know why Haas, and maybe it's because they've had different sponsors in the past or whatnot, or it's not a huge sort of market for the sport compared to others, but I don't know why they don't lean into the Americana a little bit more. Sure. Of an eagle on the side of the car. I feel they could do kind of something fun and maybe attract some more American fans, which I'm sure they want because that's their base. But besides that, just be the fun new team on the block. You know what I mean? They don't have this history. If Ferrari showed up with a purple car, that would be no bueno. Haas could show up with whatever color they want. They can do whatever they want. It could be a rainbow car, and everyone would be down for it. So I'm in on this track. Let's let them know. But anyways, we'll see. Should be a fun weekend. And like I said, this track was crazy last year, so I don't expect anything less from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix this time. Anything else, or should we wrap?
I think we've ridden, and now we'll wrap. But it's a big season ahead. I'm fired up.
We've ridden. It's a pleasure getting back on, and we will chat with everyone next week after what is hopefully another great Grand Prix. Cheers, everyone.
Sayonara.